Hey, my name is Chase, and I'm going to show you guys how to do a wet to dry dressing change specifically on a kid. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a handoff report from the nurse that was before me, and I'm going to ask her about how he or she did the dressing change the previous shift. During sim, you'll actually get a handoff report, and the nurse will verify this with you and will tell you how the dressing should be made up, so make sure you write that down. But also another good habit to get into, some nurses can get sidetracked or might even forget like how they did the dressing change. So it's always good to verify for yourself the supplies that you'll need and everything before you actually go to do the dressing change. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna perform hand hygiene. I'm gonna put on my gloves. Don't have to be sterile yet, we're just gonna look at the dressing. And anytime you go into a room in pediatrics, it's good to get into a habit of obviously talking to the kid that you're working with that day, but also to the parents and just letting them know what you're doing. So, okay, Mom, I'm gonna look real quick at the dressing and just see what we got going on here before we do our dressing change. Do you have any questions for me?
Not right now.
All right, perfect. So I'm just gonna pull the blanket down. Look at Creepette here. Okay, so looking at this, I can see they've got 4 pieces of tape. This gauze on the top is a 4x4, so I need a 4x4 gauze and tape. And then I'm just gonna peel up the dressing just a little bit. That way I can see what it is filled with, and it's filled with a 2x2 gauze. So I know I need a 2x2 gauze, a 4x4 gauze, and tape. All right, and make sure you cover your patients back up before you come back, because you don't want them to get cold and you don't want to leave them exposed. Okay, so after you have evaluated that, go ahead and take your gloves off. And then you can go ahead and gather up all your supplies. I have my supplies ready already. So I've already got my tape, which I have gotten ready before the procedure, which is important. I've got a 2x2 gauze, a 4x4 gauze. Anytime you do a wet to dry dressing change, sterilely, you're gonna need sterile water. Something to write with so that you can label your tape before you put it on. And then sterile gloves, whatever size you have. Okay? And then I'm also gonna make sure that I have a partner to come in with me to help hold, but also to help me to stay sterile as well. So Alyssa, if you don't mind.
So you're gonna squeeze on these handles, kind of pull up as you're doing it, and it comes right down.
All right. And then I'm gonna rewash my hands and put on gloves while Alyssa gets the patient ready for me. And so in S&T, we learned how to do this by a lot of the time by ourselves, by taking the dressing, the old dressing off first ourselves, and then our partner will help us from there. And peds is important, especially because a lot of kids are more immunocompromised. And even it's a good habit to get into in the adult world if you have a partner, to let your partner take the dressing off themselves while you get sterile. That way you're minimizing the time that that wound is exposed to any bacteria or anything. So I'm gonna have Alyssa, while I'm getting sterile, getting my gloves out, go ahead and take this wound off.
We also want Mom kind of up here holding the arm, holding the head down, just to make sure she's not going crazy.
Okay, and creating your sterile field, just remember with your sterile gloves, this little 1/2 inch margin you have around is the only part inside of this field that you can touch. And just for a reminder to put on our sterile gloves, these folded up cuffs, those can be touched because they're gonna be inside. So you're gonna pick up whatever your dominant side is and put that side on first. So I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna put my right hand glove on first. And then for the left hand, I'm gonna slide my right glove in to this seam here and flip it onto my hand like that, and then put my left hand in from here. And if you have anything on your wrist at all, make sure that is going over top of what is on your wrist. So I am now sterile.
And then Mom, since I'm gonna move over, can you kind of hold the legs with one arm and then this side of the body with one arm as well?
Alrighty. So my partner is going to open up what is going to be filling the wound, the packing. So I saw earlier it was a 2x2 and it was actually half of a 2x2. So I am gonna get only half of this 2x2 out. The other one I can drop it because I do not need it. And I'm gonna have Alyssa pour my sterile water onto my packing. I'm just gonna get most of the water that's left on there off. Okay, so I have a string of packing gauze ready. And so the way that we pack this is very specific so that we're minimizing the time that we're over the wound to leave one hand sterile. So I'm gonna use my dominant hand to hold the gauze. I'm gonna use my non-dominant hand to pack it in while feeding with my right hand. And as I'm packing with my left hand is now not sterile because it has touched that wound. And my right hand still is sterile because it has not touched the wound and I left it up as high as I could while I was packing that gauze in. So I'm gonna have my partner get the 4x4 open, and I'm only gonna take out half of this. And you try to drop it with that hand. Okay, so I've got my 4x4 ready to cover up the packing. And I'm going to just drop this on and cover the wound. So now that the wound has been covered by the 4x4, the sterile part is complete. So I'm gonna go ahead and move to get tape on to this dressing while my partner holds the legs and mom holds the arms. I'm gonna get the sides down first. That way it's at least secure in one direction. Okay, and then before I get this last piece on, I'm going to label this piece of tape with my initials, the time that it was done, which is 12:30, and the date, which today is the 6th. And then, now that that's labeled, I'll go ahead and put on my final corner of the dressing. So now, Mom, thank you for holding the patient. We'll just get Crepette here covered back up. And that is how you do a sterile wet to dry dressing change.